Okay, we'll have Shiva joining us briefly. But yes, I'm joined by some really thoughtful and interesting folks who are bringing in a diverse perspective to this. So I've got Jan Schadrack with me, Global Therapeutic Area Head for Neuroscience and Rare Disease at Roche. Yeah. This might be our virtual piece joining. I've got Tarek Ahmed as well, Senior Vice President and Global Head of Research at Lundbeck, and Danish Munir, a partner at Grey Matter Capital. And we'll introduce Shiva when she joins. She might not need introduction. Okay, so yes, we're going to be talking about brain lens investing today. And we've, I think, just heard why this deep shift is required, why some of this is already underway as we move from an economy that values really extraction and efficiency to one that also values human potential, adaptability, and resilience. Because in the brain economy, brain health and brain skills aren't just social goods, they're also economic drivers. But this transition is not going to happen automatically. Our financial systems still don't see or value brain capital. So whether that's the upside of mental well-being or supportive early childhood experiences and early childhood development, or the risks of a burnt out or disengaged workforce. And we really need a practical framework to give this concept a way to integrate into financial decision making. And that's what we're going to be talking about, brain lens investing. And for some folks, that may sound a little bit familiar. And yes, much like gender lens investing or child lens investing, this isn't about a new asset class. It's really a cross-cutting investment logic to equip public and private and philanthropic investors to integrate brain health and brain capital into how we assess value, how we assess risk, and how we structure returns. And as Harris said, it's across sectors. So I can give a brief example, but we're going to really get into it with the real minds behind this who are sitting with me. But part of it is, so how are we thinking about the investments that are made? So right now, corporate loans are tied to pricing on leveraging and cash flows. And thinking about this from a brain lens, it would be considering how you could tie returns to things like reducing burnout and errors, because that's really what's driving productivity. It's what's driving retention. It's what's driving earnings. So it's about taking a different valuation logic. And hopefully you can think about then, how would that also trickle into the types of investments that are made? It's not niche. Early childhood, youth mental health, neurotech, brain positive infrastructure, these are all investable markets that are growing. The question is whether our valuation methods, our deal terms, can also catch up. And the last thing I just want to say is this is broader than health services. It includes things, skills, adaptability, creativity, leadership, and the systems that shape them. So workforces, food systems, transport, AI. And applied well, something like brain lens investing can also correct blind spots that we have right now in our systems, directing capital to youth, to women, to global south contexts where the most transformative impacts of brain capital gains can really be found. So I'm going to stop talking. But possibly what you've heard from me is that this isn't about presenting to you a really polished model. This is an exploration. We're going to be talking about this together, and I'd invite all of you to really think about this from your contexts and from your sectors and your perspectives, because we're going to really invite you to dive into this with us and really help us build this field. Because I think that's really how we're going to be shaping this all together. So we're going to just start quickly. I'm going to give our panelists the non-enviable task of trying to keep this first reflection to maybe about a minute, but we'll see how we do. But really want to just start with what excites each of you about brain lens investing and why you think now is the time to act. And I'm going to pick on you because you're next to me.
Well, thank you, Nicole. You're doing a great job introducing the topic. Yeah, it's very much at the beginning. And on the other hand, it's already known in a way. So I work in what's called big pharma. I focus very much on the reality of medical practice. So when medicines are introduced into the healthcare systems, how innovation is being used by physicians, what patients understand from it, and how it's adopted, and how we can help the healthcare system, the medical community adopt innovation. I'm super interested and very excited about this because neuroscience definitely has so many scientific advances and breakthroughs that will translate into clinical medicine and eventually also into benefit for individuals, their families, and societal health. And I'm particularly excited today that also we have key members from the American Academy of Neurology present that will hear about it. And why is that important? Because the paradigms of the current medical practice are not yet set up really to enable all the possibilities, the opportunities of a brain health focused medicine or preventive neurology that is emerging. So we need to really work all together in terms of shaping and transforming healthcare systems of the future, but also understand the economic flow, the incentives for whom, and especially for physicians to understand the principles and adopt and participate. So that's kind of why I'm here today.
Great. All right, Tarek, over to you.
Thanks, Jan. Thanks, Nicole. Of course, I'm a little biased working in a company that's solely focused on brain health. I couldn't be happier and more impatient to see brain lens investment. But let me just maybe give a very, very fast analogy. It took us around 50 years to realize that smoking is probably bad for your lungs. We smoked less and then we're living longer. Hopefully it'll take us less time to realize that brain health and brain well-being is probably important for innovation, for creativity, for investment, and for growth of an economy. Why now? Neuroscience, which is the science of the brain, has never been in a better place. If you look at the progress in our understanding of the brain, we still have a lot to do, but we understand diseases better, and the unmet need hasn't been greater. So the time is now, and we've got the momentum.
Hi, everybody. Danish Munir, based here in New York. I'm a founder at Gray Matter Capital. Like Tarek, we are also biased. We invest exclusively in mental and brain health. So we're sort of in some ways preaching to the choir. We're very excited that others are paying attention to this field. We are early stage investors. We invest at seed stage when founders are just getting started. And our belief, is that founders and the entrepreneurship ecosystem, like we heard earlier today, is a core part of the brain economy. And in many ways, it's a part of the brain economy that has been recognized as being valuable without being labeled as such in the past. So this new nomenclature, this new vocabulary is really beneficial because it's sort of saying, let's not just put our resources on a select group of small people, a small select group of people who are founders or entrepreneurs. Let's think about the resources available to everybody in our economy, all parts of our economy, and investing in that. The reason I'm really excited about this particular moment is that investing in mental health, building companies in mental health for the last 15 years, we've had to make a case to so many skeptics about why these companies are valuable, why these businesses are going to be valuable. And oftentimes the case we've had to make has been one of ROI, one of what disease burden can you reduce? What is the prevention you can do of admissions into hospitals or ERs, right? What is the dollar cost reduction? And it's been a bit of a defensive lens. This movement of recognizing the value of the brain economy as a strategic imperative, as a path to leadership, to national leadership, global leadership, is one that allows us to be on the offensive. It allows us to think much bigger and bolder. And I don't think that, sometimes we worry that it's going to take us time to get people on board with this. I agree. We have to define the mechanics, the semantics, the vocabulary of the space accurately. But the really good news, what excites me, is that the sentiment is already there in the mainstream. And the reason I believe that is most of you, if you've been on Instagram in the last few months or years, you have seen some ads for nutraceuticals. You have seen some ads for some mushroom mix that you can have in the morning, because consumers today, young people today, are already thinking about how they maximize the value of their lives through focusing on their brain health. And so now the question is, how can industry translate that into value components and a value hierarchy that can be served in different parts, in different ways of the life cycle? And excited to discuss that today with all of you.
Okay, great. And I've also been told that though you can't see her, we do have Shiva joining us. So over to you as well for what excites you and why is now the moment to act around brain lens investing?
Yes, hello everyone, and it must feel like a ghost, coming from an alien voice. So really glad to be here, to be with you. Although I have major FOMO because a year ago I was actually in the room with you all. So my name is Shiva, and I'm representing the European Investment Bank, the Bank of the European Union. And what really excites me, and I think those in the room who know me know that I really truly believe that brain economy is one of, or gives the EIB also an investment area that is truly under the radar still. Yes, we have invested in some R&D projects by pharma, by biotechs, but we really have a major opportunity to really go into this much more systematically. And I think the key word here, I would say, is as the public sector Bank of the European Union, we have an important role to play as an anchor investor, coming in earlier, providing patient capital, coming across the whole ecosystem in a holistic way as a system player. And therefore, I believe that certainly in my role as heading the EIB Institute, there's also a role of future-proofing our investments through a brain lens investing approach. We still, of course, need to get our head around what that actually would mean. I get a lot of comfort from having seen the EIB embrace gender lens investing through our activities, and happy to share with you how we have done that in the past by looking at how our investments either protect, impact, or indeed identify gender lens investing initiatives. So there's a lot of, I think, experience and know-how that we can hopefully bring to this.
Okay.
And I hope you heard me. I'm not sure.
We heard you great.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. So with that to kick us off, we will continue with some questions. And I've told the panel this, but got structured questions. But I'd also very much welcome you to jump in off of each other. But starting with you, Jan. So given your work, how do you see brain health risks, things like trauma, cognitive decline, showing up in long-term R&D and value assessments? And how might a brain lens shift how value is assigned in innovation pipeline?
Well, very concretely, I work in a major organization that very much focuses on neuronal health. So we call it neurodegenerative diseases or chronic conditions or disease conditions of the brain caused by autoimmune conditions or different pathologies of dementia or Parkinson's disease. So we are in the midst of brain economy. We take high risks. These are maybe some of you know, but Alzheimer's disease has been really a very tricky field of investing for big pharma, but there's definitely a comeback now. And I think with the breakthroughs in biology and especially in better defining it and diagnosing it with biomarkers, there's true advancement. So from an investment perspective, I think it gets much more attractive to invest, and that's what many in big pharma are already doing already. So focusing on the neuronal side, on the hardware of the nervous system, but then how to document or how to illustrate the value to society. That is something we need to all work together, because we can bring medical innovation, but how it basically resonates with improving or reducing burden to disease, direct cost reduction, indirect cost reduction, having a positive impact on productivity. Very typically in Alzheimer's disease, many of the family members or caregivers are indirectly impacted because they have to reduce their work or lose their job because they have to take care. So that is a massive challenge, how to assess this and to overcome the fragmentation of the different players in the healthcare systems, because very often the ones who have the pleasure to cover the costs do not really get a share of the benefits down the road. And that's really at governmental level. to find a way, and maybe all the investment people can find creative ways of bridging basically the initial investments into innovation and then also obtaining a benefit from it down the road. Because these are long-term conditions and our business models are not yet set up for it. So what we are very much engaged in is to provide or enable good data on understanding the societal costs, and then for us to basically document how we positively impact dimension of societal burden reduction.
Yeah, thank you. I think that piece around fragmentation is also so key. It's not something we can continue to look at in our different separate small, sectors and approaches. And so then also opens up what types of things we can invest in. So, Tarek, over to you. So, from your perspective, what's one investable opportunity that becomes visible when you look beyond traditional treatment models using this brain lens?
Absolutely. It was mentioned earlier by one of the panelists. We are living nothing short of a neuroscience renaissance. And then you see this across the value chain. You see it in the amount of publications from academia in neuroscience. They're doubling, tripling over the past decade or so. You're seeing in the biotech sector, you're seeing in deals and mergers, acquisition, you're seeing an investment. Many of the pharma that have exited the neuroscience field are now back and engaging in big and large trials. So I would say research and development in all its facets is one of the lowest hanging fruit, and it has the potential to unlock substantial amount of growth, potentially trillions over the next decade. And the previous model where investing in brain health amounts to just paying money and then rarely getting anything in return. This is changing. This is becoming a healthy ecosystem that can sustain an economy. We're seeing it in major hubs in the world, and in the Boston area, for example, Cambridge, Europe, many places, the Bay Area. So I would really emphasize research and development, and not just as we do finding cures for tough brain diseases, but also looking at the whole impact of brain health. What does it mean? Brain lens investment. What does that mean? What are the multiple impact or ways to impact a society and economy if the brain is healthy? So that's one angle, research and development. The other one, and we can go through a whole panel without mentioning AI, artificial intelligence. So to me, AI is an extension of the human brain. It's kind of striking because we don't need to make a case for AI. Every CEO in every speech, they mention AI. They're all in AI, government and non-government institutions. But how about non-artificial intelligence? How about the human brain? This is a potential. This is, if you just maybe to give you an anecdote here, the human brain can execute or can perform an exaflop. I don't know whether you know what an exaflop is, which is a billion mathematical iteration per second. So 10 to the power of 18 mathematical operation per second. All this using the energy that's required for a small 15-watt light bulb. So this is we've got an advance that we're using really a minor fraction of the potential of the human brain. So artificial intelligence is like allowing the human brain to go faster, to go to places that we can't really go without that help. So two things, artificial intelligence, I think is going to drive research and development, innovation is going to unlock a lot of opportunities.
I'm going to jump on that really quickly. I couldn't agree with my friend Tarek more on the renaissance that is happening in this field. We spend a lot more time, we spend a little time on pharmaceuticals, but we spend a lot more time on tech-enabled care delivery, software, tooling, infrastructure, things that can get in people's hands today that are already, people are starting to use today. And we've seen in the last 5 years, since 2020, over 11 billion of private capital in the US across venture and private equity go into this field. We're seeing exits starting to happen. We're seeing M&A starting to happen in this space. So there is definitely a renaissance going. My friend Tarek left out New York as one of the hubs for some of this activity, but that's okay. I forgive him for that. The case I would make on the opportunities to invest, can I just get a quick show of hands? How many people in this room identify as investors? Okay. And how many people in this room identify either on the policy side or the development side? Okay, great. So to all the folks in the policy and development side, the opportunity I present to you, right, and that I urge you to sort of think about, and I know you already are thinking about it, that's why you're here, is related to the field of AI. We have to invest in developing the brain capital of our young minds. We have to figure out how to give young minds a pathway to be relevant in this upcoming economy, because the economy is about to shift dramatically. I think we all know that. We all understand that. I'm underscoring something that's already well understood. But I think that what I'm not seeing adapt fast enough, or what I'm seeing the opportunity to invest in, is a new education infrastructure, which is very much tied to the brain economy, but a new education infrastructure that prepares young minds on critical thinking, on strategic thinking, on the skills that will be relevant, because a lot of the skills we have been training people for are not going to be relevant anymore. So we have a very optimistic future that's possible. I don't think AI will replace humans, but we must invest in preparing for that future, because it's not going to just happen automatically. There are versions of this future. There are realities that could exist, metaverses that we could walk into, that will be less pleasant than the ones we hope for.
Maybe one quick additional thought to investors. And when I was reflecting lately, there's no government that says, hey, we have too much budget for healthcare and in investing into science. So maybe it's the time that the private sector has to take a leading role to fill that void and drive it forward. And I think that's the huge opportunity, and that's what we all together can ignite to fill the gaps and to really bring it to the next level. And I don't think that we can rely on governments anywhere in the world to take the lead. They will follow. I mean, it was very inspiring to hear from the gentleman from California, how they're really on track, but I think it's time for the private sector to drive it. Yeah.
Thank you all. A lot of really rich things for us to consider here. And I'm going to go in thinking as well about investment models, as we're talking about. So Shiva, I'm going to you. What is one lever, things like public-private philanthropic models, policy, or institutional metrics that could embed brain capital into financial systems at scale?
Yes, so let me actually come in just because I think it was Jan who now mentioned the importance of the private sector investors to step in, which I wholeheartedly agree. And would, however, add also that we have a really interesting opportunity here, because as also I think Tarek or Jenny was now mentioned, there is generally whenever it comes to innovation, there is a risk-return asymmetry. And what I mean with that is you have the entrepreneur, you have the large pharma who take a lot of risk in investing in new treatments, innovations, and then they have some financial returns. But there are also some major societal returns that are not coming back to them, but they are societally. We see that a lot in the clean technology space. The societal returns are the lower CO2 emissions and what have you, job creations and so on, which the entrepreneur is taking all the risk but not necessarily getting that return. That's where the asymmetry comes in, which makes a strong business case for indeed a public sector and also public sector intervention, but in a way that actually is set up to really be catalytic in creating opportunities, mechanisms, financial instruments that then give the necessary incentives, risk reductions, so that the private sector also come in. Now, this doesn't have to be necessarily always sort of sequentially, because we have, of course, early stage investors that may come in already, make some equity investments, but very often these at some stage there may be more capital needed, and also the enabling infrastructures, the ecosystem. I mean, it's not just innovative, let's say the drug, but you do need to have the whole care infrastructure that needs to be in place, the equipments. So I would therefore say there is certainly that public-private dynamic, and you mentioned philanthropic, because I think here again, at the end of the day, when we look at the brain economy potential, there is a lot of capital out there that could come in with that lens. It's an allocation issue, right? It's an allocation issue. And at this stage, I would argue that we are probably dealing in a world where we don't even know what we don't know, meaning the regular investor doesn't even see necessarily this opportunity, doesn't even know that there's this opportunity. And a lot of it is about now raising awareness precisely the way Pavel, Harris, Kana, all the people, lovely people in the audience who I don't now see, and also the panelists, of course, to raise that awareness in the financial community, because indeed this is one where the returns are, I mean, the market is there. It's clearly this, all the data shows that there is a market for whatever is going to be developed. I mean, of course, there are a lot of risks in the development. It's a matter of right now making sure that we bring in all the various sources of capital together in smart ways. And I think this is where certainly we hope as the EIB to have, to use mechanisms that we already are using for climate, for gender, for all sorts of other important social causes that can be instruments that can be replicated with that brain lens sort of criteria. So I don't think we also need to reinvent the wheel. It's a matter of really bringing that awareness, that mindset, and also not making it as yet another, niche thing. As you mentioned, I think, Nicole, this is not niche. This is really our, it's just a matter of being very aware of how important it is to be brought into anything we finance.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that. I might have, okay. And just building off of the notes that are coming up across all of you around private sectors. So, Danish, I've got one more question for our panel. It's directed at you. So you work directly with early stage ventures. So how can deal structures or investor expectations be reshaped to really unlock these brain positive outcomes in things like tech, education, or workplace innovation?
So early stage markets, the markets themselves for early stage investing, right, don't segregate companies across where they're investing. The markets are the markets. The investors that are there. There are some specialized firms. There's a small set of specialized firms like ours and a few others in the room that focus on that. But in these markets, the term sheets, the deal structures are very mature, and they're not necessarily adverse in any way. I don't think that that's what the gap is. I think the gap is, of the 11 billion we saw in the last 5 years, about 200 to 250 of that, 250 million of that went to specialized early stage firms. So a lot of that capital is flowing through generalist firms that aren't always looking at this sector in a way that appreciates the complexity, the depth, the resolution that is needed to avail these opportunities, to have the patience required sometimes to see these things through, because for them it's like their one bet in this sector when they have 15 of the sectors they're paying attention to. So I think funneling more capital or making it easier for new firms to come up and succeed that are early stage is going to create a flourishing, thriving ecosystem. How can groups like the EIB and others do that? Provide the tools that early managers need, right? A lot of times early stage managers need working capital. They need infrastructure and resources. They need support on banking. They need support on administration. There's a lot of things you can do to make it easier for early stage managers to thrive and to reduce the hurdle for them to get started and get in business. The actual area where I would, however, focus us on, if there's one thing to be done, it is to introduce the kinds of concepts we discussed that have been applied to climate, gender-led investing. The practical way of doing that is, and I've seen some groups in Europe doing this, and I'm a big fan of this, I think this needs to happen more, is I've seen certain hedge funds or certain folks investing in listed companies developing indices of companies, of Fortune 500 companies, of other companies, and ranking them on how they're performing or how they're investing in their workforce as far as mental health is concerned. I think we can expand that to saying, how are they investing in their workforce as far as the brain economy is concerned? And creating some kind of awareness, creating some kind of visibility, rewarding these companies, even if it's just through social credit and making it easier for them to hire more people, is what's going to create a pull mechanism for early stage startups to sell into. Like, that's what they need, is better definition of the end markets, and the early stage capital will flow on its own. I don't think we need more structures at the moment. At least in the US, we don't. There's plenty of capital coming there. It's much more, how do we incentivize the actual end customers to pay attention to this and have a vocabulary for how they can justify these investments to their CFOs. Because today, when a CHRO walks in the last 24 months, there's been a huge pullback. There's been a huge sort of, as the world's political climate has shifted, a lot of the softer things that we were investing in have been called that soft. And there's been a retrenchment from those. And we need to not let that happen. So I'm sorry I'm going a little bit longer here, but I think the imperative for a lot of us in this room is to raise the flag and say, if we make these short-sighted moves, if we pull back on these things, we are hurting the brain economy. We may see a little bit of efficiency today. We may have a better quarterly earning next quarter, but in 5, 10, 15 years, this is going to be value destructive for these companies. And we need to incentivize these companies to keep making those investments in their workforce that leads to a more flourishing brain economy downstream for early stage companies.
Yeah, I fully agree with my friend Danish. What I would like to add as well is one big value driver is these, what I refer to as unlikely partnership. These are entities in different sectors collaborating, partnering to make major leaps and transformative or disruptive innovation. And you'll see this biotech, pharma, academia, biotech. So these a chemist and a biologist talking together, a physicist and an economist. These partnerships can propel further growth.
Thank you. I mean, it's fair for you guys to go longer when you're talking about things that are this interesting and important. So I appreciate it. We also know that a lot of you in this room are engaged in this type of thinking and work. And so we did want to take a moment to hear from some people in the audience. And I can be the mic person. We've got Gail Rousseau here. Over there. Okay. Tell us a little bit. Give us a bit of a considerations from the perspective of, oh, thanks, Danish. Never mind.
Thank you.
Around TBI, global neurosurgery.
Thank you very much. Great panel. Thank you very much. And thanks for asking for the question. Well, my name is Gail Rousseau. I'm the chairman of the board of directors of the G4 Alliance, which is the surgical NGO that advocates for the 5 billion patients on our planet who don't have access to surgery. But I'm also a professor of neurosurgery in Washington, D.C. at George Washington University. And so I'm sure I don't need to say more to convince you that we cherish the brain. It is literally in our hands every day and are deeply devoted to the prevention and treatment and rehabilitation of the brain. So in an effort to meet 90% of you, as we've been asked to do, I just wanted to mention some of the things that neurosurgeons are involved in that I would love to engage on. So in terms of prevention, we successfully passed a resolution at WHA in 2023 for something simple like folic acid fortification, which largely prevents spina bifida and the hydrocephalus that goes with it. In terms of treatment, we are all interested in neurosurgery in every bit of high tech, which we use every day, and we want more that will allow us to more safely, effectively, and treat patients. And then we're really interested in rehab and neuromodulation, and it's our centers that are doing the brain-computer interface of Neuralink, that are doing ultrasonification to allow medications for Alzheimer's disease to more effectively get into the brain and treat patients. So I have an ask for this group. I like talking about things that are very specific and very direct. Traumatic brain injury, we can all get behind that. If we revere and cherish the brain, we want to protect it. And to just throw out some numbers, the number of people who die every year from traumatic brain injury is about 6 million annually. That's the same number that died in the entire COVID pandemic. And what's more, 20 million people around the world every year have traumatic brain injuries, so they are left with the need for treatment and rehabilitation. So it's a huge issue. So here's my ask for this community. We are building a big tent in order to have another successful WHA resolution in 2026 that will make traumatic brain injury a chronic and reportable disease. And in so doing, we hope that by having good data as McKinsey Health Institute has shown us, that we can help direct attention, investment, and resources in traumatic brain injury. I look forward to talking with many of you at the break. Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing that really important and valuable perspective in. I think Zul Maraliari, I don't see him. I'm sure we'll be able to get his perspective at another time, and we're over time, so that's okay. All right, so I'm going to ask, thank you to all my panelists. I'm going to ask you, okay, like I said, we're over time. So 2 sentences. What's one action you would invite this room to take to really move the needle most for brain lens investing? And Shiva, why don't I go to you first as our kind of voice in the sky? What would be one action that this room needs to take?
Well, I mean, I would say certainly, I mean, this is not very self-serving, but show us the investment opportunities. So if there are people in the audience who are companies that are looking on the panel, in fact, who are looking for a partner, a strategic financial partner to co-fund, co-invest with you, please. I think we need investment opportunities that are out there. And I would also make a quick plug for Europe. We very much believe in our scientific excellence and want to promote it further. And we would hope that we get more inward investment from the US into Europe. So any companies that are out there that want to come to Europe, please also get in touch with us.
Thank you. And we can see you now. Oh, we saw you briefly. Danish, over to you. What's one thing?
I think talk to each other. I think you'd be surprised at how many people are thinking about the same problem, the stakeholder that you're trying to work with and having a struggle with. There's somebody else who's running into the same struggle. So take advantage of being here, talk to each other, talk to us. We're happy to share our learnings. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity, Shiva. We will definitely connect afterwards. But you'd be surprised at how much you can move the ball forward. We found great success in partnership.
Great. So if I had one thing, maybe it's along the mindset shift from it's nice to have an activity relating to brain health to a must do, I think. And the time is now. It couldn't be more urgent.
Well, and then finally, from my side, to reiterate the point, if there's plenty of really skilled brains here that want to apply, and if you find as investors building out what Danish said, an infrastructure to really compensate the void that maybe is emerging from lack of governmental investments, that would be one for investors to think about how to drive it from a private sector. For my fellow physicians, neurosurgeons, neurologists, to think how can we embed understanding concepts of brain economy, brain capital into the medical curricula and medical school, so it becomes second nature as a practitioner, to also not only consider the patient in front of you, but also understand the societal impact it really can have in a broader sense. And then finally, for the public policy development people, help increase public awareness, even in school. It can start in the elementary school to have a routine in checking, like not only your physical workup, annual workups, but also your brain health related workup. So it becomes a very natural thing and we will destigmatize many of the issues that are still very strong in our society. And I think this will all help us move into a better brain healthy future.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. And hopefully this has sparked some ideas and some thinking in all of you. And as Harris mentioned, excuse me, be launching a white paper really looking at brain lens investing, putting this together, what this can mean. And so we invite you, I'm about to say, just go talk to Harris, but that might not be fair to him. But we will follow up with you in ways if this is something you'd like to engage with a little bit more of how you can help us continue to build this field together, because I think it will rely on all of your valuable perspectives and thinking of ways that this can really turn from something that has, that's at the moment still abstract into something that's really concrete and investable. So thank you so much. Thank you, the panelists, and looking forward to continuing this conversation.